Merlin, the legendary magician from Arthurian mythos. Have you ever wondered how powerful he is? Well, probably no, because only a true Chad such as myself would choose to spend his limited time on Earth thinking about something as pointless and childish as power levels. But questionable life decisions aside, is Merlin big strong? Well, let's talk about it. But before we get to that, why don't we talk about his story? Because if you don't know anything about Arthurian legend, I am sure you're going to find it very interesting. So, our story begins, as many of them often do, in hell. You see, Jesus has died. Oh, spoilers for the Bible, by the way. And now the devil is worried because people have it a bit too easy to go to heaven now, which means hell might start looking a little empty. So to make sure people still goes to hell, the devil plans on having a son, and then the plan is to have this son convince people to do bad things so that they end up in hell. So the devil goes to earth, shenanigans ensue, and one night the devil sleeps with a woman and gets her pregnant. The woman is then arrested because, according to the text, during that time a woman was not allowed to be a single mom unless she was a prostitute. So the woman is sentenced to death, but because killing her would kill the child, she is instead imprisoned in a tower for 2 years until the baby is old enough to technically not need her, and then they are going to kill her. While in prison, she gives birth, but it turns out that the baby is evil looking, his body is covered in black hair, and he comes out with unusually long hair on his head. The baby then is immediately baptized. This makes him turn good, thwarting the plans of the devil. All of the hair on his body falls off, and then he's given the name Merlin. Yes, that's his origin story. Important thing to note here, it is stated Merlin is born with all the powers of the devil. That will be relevant later when we start discussing his powers, but for now let's put a pin on it and continue with the story. So fast forward 2 years and it is time for the execution, but at this point 2-year-old baby Merlin reveals to everyone that, surprise, he can talk, and also he knows the past and the future. Using this knowledge, Merlin reveals scandalous secrets and the execution is prevented. After this, Merlin advises his mom to become a nun, and they live peacefully until Merlin is 5 or 7 years old. Then one day, a group of knights show up looking for a boy whose father is unknown. Why are they doing this? I'll try to be brief. So there's this king called Vortigern, and he's trying to build a fortress. Why? Long story. But every night, whatever has been built gets destroyed. Vortigern asks why, and he is advised to find a boy whose father is unknown. Then he should kill the boy and spill his blood on the ground. So Vortigern sends his knights to find this child, who of course ends up being Merlin. Merlin is taken to Vortigern. Vortigern explains him the situation, to which Merlin replies that the king is wrong. Killing him won't solve anything because the reason his fortress is being destroyed is because there's 2 dragons underground. Vortigern orders his people to dig a hole, and sure enough, 2 dragons come out. One is red, one is white. The dragons then start fighting, and eventually the white dragon kills the red one and flies away. Side note, this has nothing to do with Merlin, but according to the text, no one knows what happened to the white dragon after that. Anyways, Vortigern is amazed with Merlin and makes him part of his court. After this, Merlin starts to gain fame as the year goes by due to his precognition, and eventually he begins to travel around giving advice to many kings. The last king Merlin advises is called Gwendolew. Merlin marches with this king to a war called the Battle of Arthurian. There, Gwendolew dies and his army is massacred. The battle is so brutal that Merlin goes insane and runs into a forest called the Caledonian Forest. There, Merlin spends a really long time behaving no different than an animal. Eventually, his sister, who I completely forgot to mention, Merlin has a sister by the way, she's actually not that important so don't worry about her, but Merlin's sister feels bad for him and tries to bring him back into civilization. Shenanigans ensue, but she ultimately fails until one day, mysteriously and miraculously, a spring bursts out of a nearby mountain, and after Merlin drinks from this water, he regains his sanity, and more importantly, he loses his foresight. Weirdly, after this power leaves Merlin, it then goes into his sister, and she's the one who gains the ability to see the future. Once cured, Merlin reasons that at this point, he has spent many years living in the forest, so he might as well continue living there. His sister decides to join him. Merlin then declares he's going to become immortal, goes back into the Caledonian Forest, and remains there, presumably, even until this day. The end. Now, let's talk power levels. So Merlin's main ability is his power to know the future, except that it is more than that. Merlin is an agent of fate / God, whatever you wanna call it. So if Merlin needs to know something in order for things to go according to plan, he will gain this knowledge. Merlin himself sees this power as a curse because although Merlin knows what's going to happen, he cannot change it. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, I thought Merlin was a wizard, what happened with all the magic? And while the Merlin from Arthurian legend does have magical abilities, his main shtick is prophecy, and the magic he performs you will find very underwhelming. Basically, temper your expectations because he's not Harry Potter. So, Here's what he has done. Merlin made the rocks from Stonehenge weightless. According to Arthurian legend, Stonehenge used to be in a different place, but thanks to Merlin's magic, the stones were made weightless and they were transported from where they were to their current location today. This could mean Merlin has either weight manipulation or gravity manipulation, depending on how much you want to wank him. Also, he can control the animals in the Caledonian forest. In addition, he knows how to make potions. For example, a shape-shifting potion that lets you look like anyone else. He is also a trained warrior and he seems to have superhuman strength, but for us exactly how strong he would be, that's anyone's guess. Lastly, as mentioned before, at the end of his story, Merlin becomes immortal. And that's it. That would be Merlin solely based on what he has done. But don't think even for a moment that we cannot wank him into being extremely powerful. For example, Morgana Le Fay, another famous character from Arthurian legend, knows so much magic that she is referred to as a goddess. Not because she's literally a divine being, but because even in her own setting, where there are already other characters with supernatural abilities, she seems godlike in comparison. And it is stated Merlin taught Morgana all the magic she knows, so technically Merlin should also be a godlike wizard. However, if we are looking for a way to wank Merlin into being extremely powerful, the best way to do that is with that little pin we mentioned earlier in the video. Remember that? Let's go back to it. Merlin is stated to have all the powers of the devil. Now, I personally would prefer to not talk about religion as much as I possibly can, so I will not even attempt to gauge how powerful the biblical devil could be. But since Merlin is stated to have his powers, if for some reason you really wanted to wank Merlin, he technically should be as powerful as however strong you think the devil is. Personally, I wouldn't go that far with the scaling, but if for some reason you really wanted to wank Merlin, this would definitely be a way to achieve that. That being said, I don't think I have anything else to add, so I think that's gonna do it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.